They're gonna
So
love it.
there's still a lot of Xbox stuff to talk about, but we went real long on some of it. So we're going to continue that conversation on
Yeah.
on the other channel. And then we're also going to talk about some of the PlayStation stuff that came out over the course of the week. So we're going to transition everybody to over there as we do every week. We appreciate everybody. Make sure you hit the like button on the channel, hit the subscribe button. It's gonna be a great rest of the show. But while we're doing
And
that,
to be clear, we are we're going to transition you guys ourselves. So like if you're familiar with Twitch, where you will raid, sometimes a Twitch channel will raid another channel. YouTube does a very similar thing with redirects, and we're going to redirect the audience here to the DPS channel, and it's mostly to drive traffic to the channel so that eventually we can get that channel up to the point where we're doing the entire DPS podcast there, and it's all DPS and all that good stuff. I mean, we do other content there too, so check out that stuff as well. But still,
absolutely. So
it's all set up so you can do the redirect whenever you're ready.
I found you. Yep, I already found it. So, all right,
before you do that, let me
drop everything in there.
Yeah, let me get the link and put the link in the chat for those who are watching the replay. If you're watching the replay, you can just click this link and then it'll take you to the other side for the rest of the podcast. Thank you for your patience.
Did you say the other side?
Yeah,
that's
the other side. How's that?
I don't know. It is scary. The other side. See, I like this side. I'm not ready for the other side yet. SloMo, don't force it on us.
Well, change is inevitable, and we all have to just come to terms with it.
All right, we see you guys over there. The button, you'll be transitioned automatically. There's also the link there. You'll be able to hit go. So we will see you all guys over there at the DPS channel. All right. Everybody should be showing up over there.
Good to go. All right. So there was this interview in written form from Tom Warren of The Verge that came out to the minute of the official Xbox podcast that went live. And this turned out to be having a lot of additional information that was not spoken of in the podcast. I think this is where people got the information about what 4 games it was. If you guys recall, during the podcast, they didn't say what 4 games that were going. They said they didn't want to talk about the 4 games, which to me seems like weird. Like, you're going to mention 4 games. Why are you not mentioning what those 4 games are? And then I think it kind of also showed how long it had been since they had did the recording, because it seemed like maybe they had changed their mind at that point and then decided to divulge that information in the interview. So whatever, like the 4 games we know are Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Hi-Fi Rush, and Pentiment. But there's also other information that came out, and one of which it seems to be a bit of a hot button topic. So we discussed before we transition over that Diablo 4 is going to be in Game Pass March 28th, but it will not be available to everyone that's in Game Pass. Of the 34 million subscribers that are in Game Pass, if you have Game Pass Core, you will not be eligible. So that tier will not be eligible for Diablo 4, and probably not really any of the first party games that show up at day one in Game Pass. I think somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm about to say Diablo Core. Game Pass Core gets select games,
and online and access to multiplayer.
Yeah, and access to paid online multiplayer, not free games. So that's all it has. And so that doesn't mean you don't get the other Game Pass games that's in regular Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, PC Game Pass Ultimate. You don't get those.
It's basically like PlayStation Essentials, where you get access to multiplayer and they have a curated set of games that they rotate in and out that you do get with it, but you don't get the full suite of all the games like Game Pass has in it.
Right. So, what are our thoughts about that? Like, how do you how does that end up reconciling for people when it comes to they discussed 34 million. I think a lot of people automatically assumed, because we hadn't heard any concrete numbers on them from Game Pass before then, since like 25 million, which was over a year ago. That 34 million was like the everyone that's in Game Pass number, but that's not. So what is the actual number of people who are getting it? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Forte?
It's interesting because Game Pass, last time we actually got official numbers on it, like beginning of last year, was Game Pass hit 30 million. This was before they included Game Pass, Xbox Live into the mix and core. Last time we got numbers in 2022, which was, I think it was like November 2022, Xbox Live had 11.6 million subscribers at that moment. So they're basically saying that of that 34 million, only 22 to 23 million were actual Game Pass members. And that's kind of crazy that they had a 8 million, concurrent drop off from year over year or month over month. But I'm just happy the fact that that number actually did come out. Now they could have been a little bit more clear inside the stream itself or the video itself, because Sarah Bond literally said 34 million people will be able to experience Diablo inside of Game Pass, where that's not the case. It's only going to be the people that are, actual Game Pass subscribers, which to this point, we don't know the exact full number of that. But if you just extrapolate what they had before versus what they have now, that's kind of the number you're going to get. But this actually just shows me also why they're making the moves that they're making. They said that console has gotten super stagnant when it comes to Game Pass subscribers. They said they see the most growth over on PC. The console just isn't enough for them to continue to just say we're only going to have these games only on our console, because we're just not selling it as much as we would like. And in order to get these games into more places, we're going to put them on other platforms, but we're not going to take away the day and day infinity that people have learned to love when it comes to Xbox. So I think it's cool. I just think that they tried to just pull the wool over it. Like, once again, it was just a lot of not enough information was given when they first announced it at first, and we kind of found out, like as we always do at Xbox, after the point.
Gotcha. Lucius, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that I when I read the article, I thought that the 4 games that were mentioned was mostly Tom's conjecture rather than Phil specifically mentioning them. I'll have to go back and double check on that. But
I think it's been confirmed that those are the games now. I think that's been confirmed, but I mean, I could be wrong.
Yeah, who knows at this point?
For me, once again, it's not about other people being able to play or them being able to sell other things. I just think about how whether or not this is going to impact the viability of the platform. And it's always about going to be like, all right, well, our third party publisher is going to continue to be incentivized to bring their games here. And I think only the future will tell. So I don't think at this point, once again, like partially it's like a meme, but also I'm just feeling like I'm just gonna move to PC. It's not to say that I'm gonna throw my Xbox away. That's definitely not gonna happen. And I have eased up a little bit where I was before, which was I was not gonna spend even an extra dollar in the Xbox ecosystem. But now it's more like I'm moving to PC. At some point, a significant amount of my purchases will be Steam, but I can't be as hard line anymore to be like none of my purchases will be inside of the Xbox ecosystem. I don't know if that's going to be true. So, I mean, that's just where I find myself. The information that I read from the article doesn't necessarily put me in a better or worse place. it just still has me thinking about, all right, they better stick this landing. That's all I know.
Right.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like the article really solidified that, like, if you took their words for face value without looking at context and just said, well, it's only these 4 games. It's not going to be anything more than that. I think that Phil's statements and his answers to questions in that article definitely will upend that, because there's a particular part of it where I think the very first question, it may have been the very first question of it, but Phil's statement was like, darn it, why is this not? You know what? I just opened the wrong link. That's my bad.
I got it right here. So his first, so it was, why is publishing more games on multiple platforms key to improving the long-term success of Xbox?
Oh, it's not that one. It's not. It was the question about Starfield and Indiana Jones, because he said, like, you mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't part of the 4.
You mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't part of the 4 despite rumors, but will those ever come to PS5? Can you rule that out? He says, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out games going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience. But I don't want to create a false expectation on those other platforms that this is somehow the first of 4 to get over the dam, and then the dam is going to open, and then everything else is going to come. That's not the plan today. I also don't want to mislead customers on those other platforms. We're launching those 4 games, and we're excited about it. We're excited about the announcement and everything else, but we'll see what happens for our business.
You remember, Forte, when I said that was going to be he's literally speaking to what he heard from the community of what people would think about them doing this, and it doesn't matter what you say. Right. You can't tell people. Like, people are like, wait a minute, so you don't want me to believe that more games are coming, but then you also say in the same statement you don't want to rule out more games coming to other platforms. It's like, you can't have it both ways, sir. It's just, it's not how this works.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I just said I was agreeing with SloMo. He's trying to cover all bases.
Right.
He's trying to say, well, I didn't say that, and he can't say, well, I did say that.
So funny.
I didn't say that, but I did say that.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think it's about not tying Microsoft's hands, because Phil and the team have gotten in trouble in the past by having to pivot after they've said something, and now they look bad. Now they look like they're lying X, Y, and Z. So I think that's what that talk was about. I think right now they believe Phil, I think, believes that those 4 are pretty much going to be the main things, and he doesn't think that it's going to get out of control. But I don't believe that. SloMo, you don't believe that. The average consumer probably doesn't believe that. So I just don't know how true that's going to end up being. But when I look at their entire strategy, I think I go back to one of the first things that Phil said after Tina Amini asked him that question about, like, well, what is this about your business and, like, kind of growing the platform or whatever. And he talked about how a lot of games are almost like bigger than the platforms that they're on, and he mentions Fortnite and everything else. And I think what we should look at it more of like what future games is Xbox going to make, and are those future games going to be exclusive? And I think that the answer to that is no. I don't think that they're going to go back into a bunch of stuff in the past and make it so that way everybody on PlayStation can suddenly play it. I think that their strategy is, well, everything that we make in the future is going to be community oriented. It's going to be open for everyone. It's going to be something that allows you to be able to play with everyone, no matter what the platform is. And if that's how they're thinking about their games in the future, then I don't think I think very few future games will be exclusive. They'll still have some, but I just think that I think 70-30 is what the ratio, what we should expect it to be. 70% for the streets, 30% exclusive, maybe.
I think eventually it all goes. Eventually, they're starting with the smaller titles that they feel like, you know, most people probably don't really all that care about. If they do go, they're not going to be that upset about. Also, titles they think do have a potential on other platforms. It's not they're just throwing anything out there. They're all four of the games that they're putting out there are considered to be of a relatively good quality. That said, I think what they are trying to convey to the Xbox gamer is that they're really trying to weaponize FOMO. And what they're trying to do is that, like, you'll always play these games here first. And even that, I'm not 100% certain will always be the case when it comes to other platforms, like especially Nintendo Switch, considering that the Switch is kind of like in its own little niche in the console market. If they do a Hi-Fi Rush 2, it wouldn't surprise me if that launched on the Switch and Xbox at the same time. Yeah, day one. I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised with that. But like,
yeah,
will I? They are inside of their minds. They're thinking that they're going to make Game Pass such a compelling thing that everyone will want to run to it. And I think that maybe it's just because we're all older, and because of that, like we grew
We're
up with
not
a very
older. We're
particular
better.
experience.
Love it.
what did you say?
He said
we're not. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I said we're not older. We're better.
Well, I would say that a lot of what Microsoft is looking right now, they're looking towards the younger audience because they feel as if, you know, maybe people in their 20s and 30s, they've kind of already lost the battle with those people because of established libraries in the PS4 gen. Maybe that's what they're thinking. And they're trying to capture a newer audience that doesn't really care about uh, consoles at all. They A lot of these kids are playing on PC, or they're playing on their tablets, or they're playing on their phones. So that's primarily what Microsoft's thinking about. And I think that if I think it's all about messaging, and it's all about how you present this sort of stuff to your audience. Hi-Fi Rush going to PlayStation uh, feels weird to the console player, but if Hi-Fi Rush would have gone to iPad first, I don't think anybody would have cared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Hi-Fi Rush on an iPad makes so much sense.
I think it makes a lot of sense on the Switch. So
I think 100% makes sense on the Switch. Whether or not the Switch can even run it, who knows?
Well, Switch 2 will be out.
Switch can
I
definitely
hope it can run
Hi-Fi
that
Rush.
that game.
I don't know. Like this,
Hi-Fi Rush is actually
Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom can't keep at a lock 30 FPS on the Switch.
Yeah. But if you look, Hi-Fi Rush has a different art style. Like it's like the game runs at 60 frames, but the actual animations are like 15, right? Which is why Guilty Gear looks
No,
like
those animations run at 60 FPS too.
There's two. They have two different animation frames. They have a 60 animation frame, which like most of the things run at, and then there's one that runs at like 15, like he was saying.
Yeah.
But it's only some. It's only some elements.
Okay.
It's not,
okay.
It's like it's doing both things at the same time.
Yeah, it's like why Dragon Ball Z and like, you know, Guilty Gear looks amazing, right? Looks like a real anime, but the frame count is like, you know, 4 frames for some moves, right? It's less to compute. But I think, and he made a really good point, especially when he talked about, I think Microsoft is focusing on the younger gamer. They're not really making games or decisions for us anymore. They're making decisions for them, right? They know we're going to buy this stuff with what we want to buy. They're trying to make sure that the people who are 12, 15, 20 are open to it. But ultimately, go ahead, Nanika, I'm sorry.
No, good. I was the same, because that's the, when I was in a stream with Brap earlier today, that was kind of the thing I was kept bringing up, and we were talking about, with Nintendo, like Nintendo's like right now, it just seems like Nintendo will never not have a console, and it looks like they would never fail. But that's all predicated on the fact that as of right now, there's more adults that buy, Nintendo property or games for their kids, because they feel like that's what they grew up on. That's the game system that they got them into gaming and stuff for the most part. I know people that went out and bought Nintendo Switches for kids, for their family, and they never even used them. Then they would go to the store and trade them in, like, hey, my kid doesn't even like it, or they play Roblox all the time. And the thing is, we're the ones that still hang on to that lineage of like growing up with Nintendo. And I think it's going to be a while until you see Nintendo even fall off that perch, because right now it's still ingrained in like us telling our kids that Nintendo's the best system to start off with. Nintendo knows that. But what happens when those kids grow up and they didn't grow up with Nintendo, because they grew up with games like, grew up with an iPad, or grew up with streaming services, or grew up with free-to-play games and stuff? They don't see as much of a benefit to say like, oh, this is the only place I need to be. And I think the biggest thing people got to look at is, it's not that Xbox, it's not that I feel like Xbox is giving up. I just feel like they see the writing on the wall. It's like, at this point, can they really take away that mind share right now that PlayStation and Nintendo have garnered over the course of 2 decades of building it? Xbox lost out on that by not doing what they were supposed to do. I always say that this is more of a situation that they made for themselves by not having first party titles for like the last generation, not having more than 4 studios to like bolster their first party lineup. I think these are all things that they kind of did to themselves. But this is like right now the only way they could probably even get themselves to a more feasible place where they feel like we're relevant. And I think that's where they're looking at it now. Like, hey, let's start building towards the future. Let's start building to get, the younger generation inside our ecosystem any way we can. If they know that they can buy this game here and still play it there, we feel like that's a better proposition than telling them that this is the only place you can play it on this box, but the box might not do it for them. So there's a lot of different ways that these companies go, and I always go back to Nintendo. Like, Nintendo is always going to be relevant until they're not, and it's going to be generations until that happens, because of the way that we go about telling and raising our kids and getting them into the ecosystem. But at some point, that's going to change too. We just don't see it happening anytime soon.
Forte, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
If you ever played games in the 80s or 90s, did you ever have like a friend who like who wanted to play a game so much that they
absolutely we did.
Okay, so
we did.
I used to like, I was an idiot, but like me and my friends used to import certain games too, and you'd be getting those games in Japanese and you would have no idea what's going on, and you'd end up figuring out the game just via pattern recognition and just somehow figuring it out after a while.
What was the game? Yeah,
a lot of people at the end of the day just don't have the will to be able to do that, right? And
also, there are a small minority of people who did that too.
Yeah, there's a very small minority of people. And I say that to say, it's always going to be best for you as a game maker to properly localize your game, so that way people can understand what your game is asking of them.
Yeah.
So that way they can get to the fun, right? Microsoft, it has been notoriously bad at localization. A lot of their games don't have proper Korean ports, which like Korea is like one of the fastest growing gaming sectors in the world, and yet a lot of their games don't have proper Korean port or like a localization. There's problems with a lot of areas in the not just in the world that just have no idea what Game Pass is, don't get advertisement about Game Pass. Even if they wanted to get Game Pass, it's for some reason not available in their currency or not available in their country for some reason.
Don't
So
know don't know how to buy an Xbox. Don't know where to get
or
one.
you can't go to a local store inside of anywhere within the next like 100 miles for that person to be able to buy an Xbox. So
And we're not talking third world countries here. We're talking like countries in Europe that where PlayStation is everywhere, Nintendo is everywhere, and Xbox is non-existent.
is nowhere to be found. So I think I feel like for the console guy, there's a lot of arguments to be like, hey, we completely understand that you have to like go outside and potentially do all of this, but I feel like you would need to do all of that in the first place if you properly marketed your ecosystem, if you made it so that way people all over the world could actually buy your console, or if you don't want them to buy your console, if you want them to access it in other ways, that's totally fine. But like, people need to be able to sign up for Game Pass, and when they sign up for Game Pass, they need to be able to play games in the language that they speak. I don't think that is obviously it could be seen as a very heavy lift. Localization is not easy. I'm not saying it is, but before you start,
your rivals do it.
Other platforms,
your rivals do it well. You know, it's crazy.
You have to make sure that you're doing some of the most basic things well, because 90% of gamers nowadays aren't like how we were in the 90s, literally going insane for games that aren't going to be out for like a year and a half. So we import it and are like trying to learn Japanese as we're trying to go through like a 100-hour RPG. Like, nobody's going to do that nowadays.
To piggyback off
back there.
To piggyback off of what Lon's saying, just real quick, about Korea specifically, the biggest genres in South Korea are RTS games, MMOs, action RPGs, and Diablo style RPGs like Lost Ark. Lost Ark was a humongous game in Korea, and then finally came over to the Western Hemisphere of the world. And that game is very, very similar to Diablo. But the reason why I'm bringing up those genres is because a lot of the first party content that Xbox makes is in that style of genre. It appeals to that market, and it's a very big market despite the size of the country. And I've seen subreddits of people complaining about Age of Empires 4 in South Korea, about how that the game is unplayable, that the translation into Korean is incomplete, or doesn't make like the syntax doesn't make sense. It's like it's not a good translation. Like, you can't read the menus, and to the point where sometimes where the words are like coming, like they're filling up the screen, it's just broken. And it's like, how do you release a game in this state in a market that is literally primed for you to take control in? It's kind of baffling that they're allowing games to be released like that. And when the reason why I think this is part of a lot of their problem when it comes to why they only do well in the United States and nowhere else when it comes to the Xbox console, is because in Brazil and but the Americas essentially. But when your brand isn't simply about the content that you create, the product that you deliver, and the quality of it in the places that you only care about. We could look at, like, in different markets, completely different brands, and look at cars. Like, the way people think about, say, a Kia isn't how they think about a Mercedes. The way people think about a Hyundai isn't how they think about a Honda. If your brand is low, your brand, its reputation is low, and it's due to someone buying your game, giving it a shot, and not being able to play it. So when you drop another game in that country, what are they going to do? They could look at it and be like, well, that looks interesting, but I remember how Age of Empires 4 turned out. You know, it's got like Forte. What's my nickname for Boober Team?
Boo Boo Team.
Boo Boo Team. They Boo Boo Team until they drop a good game. That's their reputation as far as I'm concerned, based on what I play the medium.
And once again, the views and discretions of SloMoBackSlap do not
but look,
represent the views of Gaming Forte, Lucius Augustus, K Live, or DPS podcast.
Look, all I'm saying is that like that we all have our like how our feelings about particular games or particular products based upon our personal experiences. If everyone in non-English speaking territories has the same view of your brand, well, how did that happen? It wasn't because of Sony marketing. It was because of you. So like those are things that like I think you may have ruined your reputation with the older gamer, but then there's new gamers every year. There's new gamers who become of an age where now they are financially independent and they can spend their money on the games they want to spend on. And now with their independence, they might become an Xbox fan. And you kind of, I think, well, a lot of the things to kind of get to the point I'm making here is that the moves that they're making makes it so that like in the traditional model that has worked for so many generations for Nintendo and PlayStation and has worked extra successful for Nintendo this go around, the Switch will end up likely being the most sold console ever. You could have did that too, but you didn't do the little things to make that happen.
People need to know that you exist. And like, if these new gamers don't even know that you exist, then why would they? Like, the fact that like I talk to people who play video games a lot and I just mention Game Pass and their minds are blown, and I'm like, how is it that I'm the person like shattering the glass for you right now? Like, why is it that this isn't like an advertisement that you get blasted from like while you're on TikTok? And like you're just seeing this all the time. I just don't understand why everyone doesn't know about Game Pass, and that's Microsoft's fault.
You know what? And I'm glad you asked that. And I want to. And K-Live, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I got so many notes. It's not even funny.
No, you're good. I gotta ask you that question. Because what he just brought up is something I want to ask you. Because you listen, you my brother, but I gotta come at you every once in a while because you could come very. You know, you're very, very astute in talking about the business side of it. And I want to know, why does it, in your opinion, because we don't truly all know, but in your opinion, why do you think Xbox does not promote their services like Game Pass or even their console when basically you could have got an Xbox Series S for almost 50% off and 40 to 30% off of the Xbox Series X during the holidays? Why do you think Xbox, they're willing to put all these games and talk about all the benefits of play anywhere, but then they neglect talking about their own services and talking about their own console in a manner where more people can actually hear about it?
They don't need to. What I mean by they don't need to, services are 99% profit once you build the infrastructure, right? So it's like you don't need to talk about the individual games or, you know, promoted in other regions and all that good stuff, right? Services, people seek out services. You don't see a lot of Comcast or AT&T Fiber or WoW or Verizon Fios. You need these services. You need internet, right? Believe it or not, games are consumables, not required. But if video games went away, we'll have World War V, right? It's like they don't need to because the hardcore gamers are going to get the service. They know about it, right? He made the comment about he talked to someone, they didn't know what Xbox Game Pass was, right? That's probably somebody who plays games occasionally. That person probably doesn't care about Xbox or PlayStation, right? They just care about the game, what it's on. Oh, Fortnite, what is that on? Atari? They don't
All right.
care. So to answer the question, they don't need to, right? Because when big wigs make a decision for a company, they're not, and Slomo mentioned this a little while ago, it's about the future, right? They're not making decisions for Xbox right now or Game Pass right now. They're making decisions about Xbox Game Pass 15 years from now. It was a movie called The Islands where they were like cloning people. You guys ever see this movie?
Yeah,
It's
the
got
island. Yeah, it's got
the
Ewan
island. I remember.
McGregor in it and Scarlett
Yeah, you
Johansson.
remember?
She was
You
fine as
remember
hell. Yeah, go ahead.
when they were fighting? It was like a virtual fight scene. You know what they were playing? Xbox.
I don't remember the part.
They
I
were,
do.
But that
They
was
were
like
playing that.
500 years ago, man.
but you're not hearing what I'm saying. This is a movie, like you said, the movie's probably 15, 20 years ago, right?
Hmm.
That movie is about
When they did great marketing in English speaking countries. But go ahead.
All right, but you're not hearing what I'm saying, right? They're advertising Xbox in VR 20 years ago, right? So what I'm saying to you is, you talk about English speaking countries where they're not marketing, it really doesn't matter. And what I mean by it doesn't matter, let me tell you why. No matter what they do, unlike America, and I'm about to turn off all filters, not a killer, you want to edit this out. We're whores. Like, we'll buy or do anything. We have no brand loyalty for the most part, right? Overseas, they don't want to buy Xbox because it's an American company.
No, that's
Most of the
not.
time,
No,
just
come
hold
on, man.
Just let me
There are
finish what I'm saying.
there are plenty of people who
I want to say one. I want to say one
buy
thing.
Game Pass,
I
but they
didn't
can't.
interrupt anybody.
All right.
All I'm gonna say. So let me know when I can talk again.
Go ahead.
finish.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, right?
I love.
Yeah, in Japan, right? Korea is more. A made in America means nothing to people overseas, right? There are people like where the PlayStation is from. They will never buy Xbox because it's an American brand. It's an outsider's brand. Tesla completely smokes BYD, right? In every way. Range, features, and for those who don't know, BYD is a electric car company that outsells Teslas and EVs, right? But why is that? It's a better car, right? People think the iPhone is the #1 phone in the world. It's not. They get smoked by Android devices that's overseas, and people don't buy iPhone, which is an amazing phone, because it's an American company. Like 90%
that's
of
not why
Apple
they don't
sales,
buy it.
but you're not hearing what I'm saying. But you can't tell me why though, right? I'm going off of data. If iPhone is Apple first $1 trillion company, right? Phone is incredible. Why doesn't people in Japan buy iPhones more than they buy Samsung and other smart Android devices? Why is that? The only thing, and again, I'm not saying this is facts, I'm going by what makes sense. I'm going off of they must not buy it because they're loyal to their country. For whatever reason, for lack of a better word, country. They're loyal to their own, right? When you go to a beauty supply store, why do you see they're all owned by a certain ethnicity? Because when they get the prices, they will only sell to that ethnicity because that's their people. If a different ethnicity opens that same business, they'll get the same prices. Why? Even if they want to pay more. But Americans will sell to anybody. It doesn't matter. But to the point of gaming, right? Again, this is where, and I hate to go back to cost and finances, right? Sony's market cap, like this is the value of their company, is $166 billion, right? A lot. Microsoft is like $4 trillion. Microsoft could literally throw money as much as they wanted into Japan and Korea. It won't matter because it's not about the money. It's about brand loyalty to their internal brands. So I think Microsoft just conceded like, hey, we're not going to win this battle no matter how much money we throw at the situation, right? Let's be like Nintendo and go off-road. We don't need to always make money on hardware. Maybe let's focus on the software side. So what I'm saying is, regardless of how we view certain things, it's all about what makes sense for companies. We keep looking at things, and the way you guys are talking, I think you look at things in your own internal bubble, like outside of, well, within your, say, group of, say, 50 people. But that's not a sample size when you start talking about billions of sales and billions of people buying product. Not a Kill made a point earlier about Nintendo and how the handheld sells so well. The reason it sells a lot is A, it's cheap, right? It's cheaper than Xbox and PlayStation, right? And it's portable. It can be played in your home or on the go. A lot of kids buy it just to shut their kids up because it's cheaper than a cell phone. You have to look at the overall utility of a product. When you buy an Xbox, where you taking it? Nowhere. When you buy a PlayStation, where you taking it? Nowhere. But for the common person, if you could buy a similar experience, right, for cheaper and it goes anywhere, a lot of people want to shut their kids up. So I think that's why Nintendo does so well. And like Natakil said earlier, you do have those exclusive brand kind of, I call it memories growing up with Zelda, growing up with Mario. Why do you think the theme song for Zelda is still, it's in there? The original Zelda, that same theme song where it comes on, whatever that is, it's a version of that in every Zelda game, right? Mario's intro is in every Mario game to some extent. So to answer your question, stay on target, because I lost so much like notes. I got like 50 bullets here. Is I think Microsoft doesn't have to, right? Because you guys think it's Phil Spencer making decisions about Xbox. It's not. It's a whole board that has to approve things.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, and Microsoft can take more risk because they have an infinite. Microsoft will be in bit if Xbox went away tomorrow. Microsoft will be around for our great grandchildren, right? Elon Musk, one person has a higher net worth than all of Sony as a company. Sony could make 3 or 4 bad decisions and they're gone. So that's why they have to move way more strategically. They have to think more. They can't take risk because they can't afford to absorb the losses that a larger company can. And to wrap it up, without me talking for 5 more minutes, is the same reason why Tesla doesn't do well overseas. The same reason why, like, my wife just got a Cadillac Lyric, right? It's an amazing car. It smokes my Model X in every single way, and it was 20 grand less, right? But it's not selling. You know why? Because Tesla fans don't switch over. When you get a Tesla, I'm on my 3rd Tesla, and I drive her Cadillac, and I go, what the hell was I thinking? Gets more range, it's better. But again, loyalty in America is way more expendable than it is in other places. And that's why I think Microsoft knows this. So why focus and spend money where you won't get the return? And by the way, America is way more profitable than all the other countries because the dollar is the reserve, money of the world. And the yen is dropping, the pound is dropping, all of that. So if you sold $1 billion in Japan, it's half of that once you do the conversion. So to answer your question, I'm done with it, is the reason they don't press the issue because they don't have to. In overseas to get more sales and translate games, all that good stuff.
Okay. You're finished, right? Because I'm about to go in. I'm not scratching my head. I am not scratching my head. I was taking notes because I'm going in.
I want to hear this. Go.
Because Kayla, you said you were speaking facts. You ain't speak not a fact. You've been calling him not a kill. You spoke not a fact. Let's go. First of all, Korea is not Japan. We were talking about Korea.
So Korea. Said North Korea.
I am not done. I did not cut you off. You are not going to cut me off. That's what you're not going to do.
I'm going to get kicked off this podcast.
You ain't going to kick it. You ain't going to get kicked off. You are not getting kicked off. But you will not cut me off on my podcast.
You talked about Korea.
I'm talking. I'm talking. I'm still talking though. You're going to stop talking and let me finish is what you're going to do. I'm not going to stop talking until you stop talking. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't care?
Don't say things I didn't say. Don't say things I didn't say. That's all I'm saying to you.
You cut me off before I even finished what I was saying.
You said Korea.
Hold up.
In Korea in the chat, bro. I put it in our chat when you said it.
I wasn't finished talking. So you cut me off before I even finished my sentence. So you don't know what my full statement was. So don't cut me off talking about what I'm saying when you don't know what the hell I'm saying.
When you bring up
I literally started saying Korea is not Japan, and then you cut me off. I am not done. I had a statement to say.
Go ahead.
And no, and furthermore, I'll let you speak for a full ass 5 minutes on my damn show.
I didn't
And then
talk for
I
20
spoke
minutes
for
while y'all were
5
talking.
seconds, and then
Go
you cut
ahead.
me off. So what we not going to do on my show is cut me off on my damn show. That's what we not going to do.
Hey,
Go ahead.
hey,
Speak,
go ahead,
speak your mind,
SloMo.
bro.
Speak your mind.
Speak your facts. He's speechless.
As I was saying, I'm not speechless. Waiting for your ass to shut the hell up. How about that? Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Korea is not Japan. So when you're talking about brand loyalty and they don't want to buy American in Japan, that's what you're talking about. You're saying the world, but that's really just Japan. Japan's not the world. Europe is not Japan. Now, sure, the other companies, their competition is Nintendo and Sony, and those are Japanese companies. But what does Germany have to say about that? Germany does not care.
Oh,
Germany just wants a good product. When you brought up Android does better in the world because Android's cheaper with better features. It's a better product. That's why it does better in the world. That's how that works. The rest of the world,
they literally set on fire. Those cars
Okay.
are on fire in China.
the rest of the world matters. Why does the rest of the world matter? Because with their most successful console, the Xbox 360 was done, it still got outsold by PlayStation and Nintendo. And that's because even though it was, I would say, the better console to have throughout the majority of that generation, it primarily only sold in American and English-speaking territories. This is an issue. No, because I'm not done.
Let him go.
The issue of localization is not something that they don't have to worry about. It's something that they have chosen to not worry about. And it's the reason why they're in the situation they're in right now. Trying to figure out how to make this work. Trying to figure out what do we need to do. They're doing a completely like historical thing of having a platform and deciding to put their games somewhere else because they suck in the world. And they suck not because people don't like America. They just don't like bad products. This is a bad product in those regions of the world. It is about games. And if you have a service that does not feature games that people want, or games that people say, I don't understand, they're not going to get your service. Bad localization will not change because of Game Pass. You can't sell someone a service and say, well, there's a bunch of games in here. You just pay $10. Well, okay, so how come that service has been stagnant for over a year and a half? How come that service had to be bolstered by people who really aren't benefiting from that service? And they just now talked about the numbers 34 million. Because it's not selling. Because it's not selling to people. They don't market it well. And in the regions outside of the United States that most of them don't have it. And if they do have it, there's again the issue of not tailoring your product to the people that you're selling it to. And the finish this all up, games everywhere. This initiative will not work until they fix these very basic things that their competitors do. Their competitors market their product and tailor it to the regions that they put that product in. Once upon a time, Nike sold their shoes in a country where the name Nike was translated to devil. When you don't understand, and they didn't understand why their product didn't sell. When you don't understand the region, the culture, and the people, and you're trying to sell them games they either don't care for or they can't understand, you cannot be surprised when your product fails. So yeah, if they have that mentality of they don't need to do that, all right, well, this is why they're in third place. And if they want to expand to the PC market, this is why they'll continue to get bodied by Steam. because it's this mentality that got Google in the space of video games with Stadia and right back out 2 years later. Just because you're great at making money in other markets doesn't mean that it's a one size fits all kind of thing. It's just not how it works.
And let me add one thing to that.
Wait, before you,
thank you.
Wait, before you come and let you go, I just want to say something about this. First of all, everybody chat, really appreciate you guys. Only thing I want to say is we got to be respectful to each other on this podcast. You know, Forte, geez, I just called you me because you do sound like me listening to you on here. But K-Live, definitely when, if something you don't agree with, just let it ride out and then say what you got to say. It's going to always come back to you. SloMo, same thing. The biggest thing I want to say is, yes, it's our podcast, but we open it up to all our guests to have their opinions and stuff. So I don't feel.
I did not say he can't have his opinion.
No, I'm not saying
but
that.
But we gotta be respectful.
But we're not gonna. But we're also not gonna sit here and say just because it's our podcast that
exactly.
We're not going to do that. We can't do that. That's something we're not going to do.
We will discuss further offline. Then.
No, I'm just saying.
No, because I was not being. If I'm being disrespected, don't be mad at my response.
No. And that's why.
That's what we're not going to do.
SloMo, listen. That's why I said I brung up what he said first. And then I said what you said. It basically started in a back and forth.
It ain't a both ways. It ain't a both ways thing. It's not a both ways thing.
Well, listen, it's definitely a both ways. One can't happen without the other. One can't happen without the other. We will. I'm just saying we got to be respectful to each other. Just because it's our podcast, I do agree. Definitely do not want to disrespect anybody. If you feel like you're being disrespected, absolutely, I understand that. But there is always a time and a place, so we can definitely move on with that conversation past that. I just want everybody to know that that is not accepted. We are not about to allow that to keep going. But SloMo, I'm glad you made your points. Hey, Live, if you have anything you want to say to rebuttal anything somebody says, please let them finish their thoughts and their conversation, because definitely we will get back to you. And that's all I wanted to say. So Lucius, my homie, go ahead and say what you were going to say.
So I think at the end of the day, Microsoft's goal is to try to interact with, impact, reach out to 3 billion gamers, right? And those 3 billion people, you're not going to be able to get to that simply by catering to only English-speaking people. That the Americas doesn't have the numbers that you need to be able to hit the 3 billion, right? And we're not saying that you have to bend over backwards to be able to appeal to these people. It's simply, and I'm not even saying that you have to market each and every single one of your games. I can understand that Microsoft is trying to market their service, right? And I want them to market their service, but it is absurd to me that more people don't know about Game Pass, and that is a problem that Microsoft has. And it shouldn't be, you shouldn't look at it as people will come to Game Pass. No, that's a very bad mentality. It's not like internet service where you literally need it. It's not like your water. It's not like electricity where they have a literal monopoly over a specific area. These services, things like Photoshop, things like Office, you see advertisements for them all the time. And it's because despite the fact that they know that people want those sort of services, you always have to keep that sort of brand in the public eye. It's surprising to me that Microsoft continues to not put the Game Pass brand in front of people's eyes, and so many people, including the casuals, are consistently surprised that this thing exists. I don't think it is so insane for me to be like, yo, everyone should know about Game Pass. I don't understand why you're not advertising it enough. And like, if anyone should know about it, it should be casuals, because casuals save so much money by signing up for Game Pass, because for the equivalent of like 3 games a year, you get a bunch of different games. You're a part of the zeitgeist when things like Power World come out. You're able to jump in and play and everything else. Like there is 100% marketability towards this thing. I simply question why it's not being marketed anywhere near as much as I think it should. And that has
Exactly.
nothing to do with console wars. That has nothing to do with Xbox. That just has to do with, why is it that you're not telling people about this great thing that you have? And then when you don't tell people about it, you complain that your numbers are stagnating. Well, it's because you're not telling people about it. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. K-Live, what do you want to say?
So I'm gonna give 4 bullet points with no explanation. If you guys want explanation, ask. You guys say it doesn't, they matter, right? Other countries matter regarding, I'm speaking strictly profit here, right? Japan, South America, Korea, they have higher populations, like on an individual country basis, than America, right? Out of the top 10 most profitable, meaning with the highest market cap companies, out of the first 10, 6 are American based. So what I'm saying is that's why it's not important. It's more than just even number of sales. It is how much does your dollar get when you spend it. Microsoft is the most profitable company in the world. Then it's Apple, then Nvidia, which is, I believe, I'm not sure if they're American or Japanese. I think they might be American too. If they are, then that's 7.
Nvidia's Chinese.
They're Chinese, yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Nvidia, Apple or Alphabet, Amazon, Facebook, and then some more. I can't even, Berkshire Hathaway, which is a bank, which I'm pretty sure is here, and then Tesla is number 10. So what I'm saying is, if you guys think it matters, these other companies don't need to. And every company I just said, they don't have a big presence in these countries because the money is here. Would you want to say, I want to own the city and make $1 million, or own the block and make $1 billion? That's what I mean about it doesn't matter. So second, when it comes to, you said I cut you off in 5 seconds. I'm glad this is recorded. I tried to talk about 4 times and got overspoke, didn't get incorporated, which is why I had like 50 bullet points. Second, this podcast started off on a different channel. And if you have to yell, this is your house, in most cases, it's not. And I'm not being disrespectful to you. You come to my house and you do something I don't like, I will talk to you individually, say, hey, I got you. I will let you actually, as long as you're not disrespecting my wife or my kids, you're cool. But anything other than that, if you don't know the rules, I'm not going to come at you. I'm going to talk to you literally afterwards, say, hey, this is what my expectations are. Hospitality is a real thing. And you can take that how you will. And that's all I got to say. Again, if these other, and again, I'm not talking about people or ethnicities or gender or creed or religion, from a strictly profitable standpoint, which is what Microsoft is, they're a for-profit company. They know they don't need these other places to be financially solvent, and the numbers prove that.
Well, the only reason I kind of want to, I'll co-sign on one part of that where you talk about, because I don't know about because like I said, you digged a little bit deeper than I even thought about going into it. But if we go back to the Xbox 360 generation, I always tell people the reason Xbox didn't really, like, people was wondering like how the support in other countries were. Like, they had really decent support in Europe, and they had pretty much no type of support or any foot ground in Japan at that point. They pretty much still don't have it. They have a little bit more than they had back then, but the majority of their support was here. Like, they were like, I think of their 83 million consoles, 70 to 80% probably was here. It was here in America where they made a big push. Now the biggest thing is they just didn't find a way in America to get as many people to buy Xbox Ones or Xbox Series S's and X's over the course of the last generations, because I feel like in most gamers' eyes, Xbox is not, it's a secondary platform to the PlayStation. I always felt like PlayStation is the platform that people default to. And the only reason Xbox had a good head start with the 360 is because first it came out first, and then PlayStation came out at an astronomical price at the time, $600. And then on top of that, they just didn't have the compelling games that people wanted to play, and third-party games were technically ran and performed better on the Xbox 360. So that all kind of added up to Xbox having a lot of market share that they probably wouldn't have had if PlayStation would have kind of came in line like they normally did. But over the course of that generation, the people that bought 360s that were PlayStation fans, they didn't stop being PlayStation fans just because they had a 360. They just waited for PlayStation to finally come out with games, or they waited for that price on that PlayStation 3 to drop. And then they finally, reverted back to what they actually were, fans of PlayStation, and they bought a PlayStation. And then it kind of just all flipped for them at that point, especially when Xbox stopped, making first party games, closed a lot of their divisions when it comes to like the first party going all the way through 2013, 2014, 2015. And you started seeing a very, very big change in what Xbox was, on top of not having the support from Microsoft that they are having now. So the unfortunate thing is if Microsoft would have supported Xbox not then like they are now, I think we would be having a completely different conversation. But I still don't know if the world itself would accept Xbox as the number one platform. I think it was like a little bit of fool's gold to think that people were just as in love with Xbox as they were with PlayStation back in 2006. I think it was just the fact that PlayStation at that time was just a system that people just refused to buy. And then Xbox just happened to come out early. And that was kind of the catalyst to help them, garner all that love and attention that they had. And granted, they took advantage of it, but who knows what that future would have been if Microsoft would have backed them 100%. But it also goes back to what Lucius just said. I do agree with him on, I don't know why. I do agree with you too, K Live, when it comes to they don't have to do it. But as a gamer, you just sit there and you wonder, like, why are they asking other gamers to do the job of Microsoft? Like, I feel like granted, I work in a store, so my job is to talk about stuff like Game Pass and tell people what the benefits are. But the amount of people that walk through the door and they ask, and I have to explain that to them, is way more than it should be, because Xbox itself should be promoting that. And even if they want to promote their overall influence and saying that you don't have to play, they keep saying you don't have to have an Xbox to, play their games, but you should be talking about your service a little bit more than you are. We all remember walking down the street, seeing Halo 3 marketing everywhere. Like, what is the difference between this Microsoft and that Microsoft or that Xbox, because they used to do it, but now they don't do it. So it's not like and they were always $1 trillion company. So they just got more money now. So it's not like like they were broke back then.
In fact, they were way more broke back then, because back then they weren't $1 trillion company. So when Satya first came in, Microsoft was only a $500 billion company. It was only through Satya's like manipulative, evil empire like mentality that he's really good at, that Microsoft is now a $3 trillion company. So they've dramatically increased their valuation. But I want to address something about the money
company, though, as far as
just because you should not judge the GDP of a country, the gross domestic product, or how many of the top 10 or top 500 of the index companies? These companies come from this country, thus you don't have to pay attention to this entire market. That doesn't make any sense, especially when Microsoft is the one who's telling you they're trying to hit 3 billion gamers. There are not 3 billion English speaking people on this planet. So when they say that, that means that they have to go outside of the English speaking world. That is their words, not mine. So when they say that, that means that they have to service these people who do not speak English. Whether or not you think that they're going to be able to maximize the same amount of profit as they do from an American audience, which they're not, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't try, and that by fixing their localization problem, they wouldn't get these sales. You're telling me that it's okay to send Starfield and Halo to PlayStation because they'll make more money, but you're telling me that it's not okay for them to localize things so Chinese and Japanese and Korean and African people can play these games? That doesn't make any sense, bro.
Yeah.
I never said that. Let me tell you what I said. You're speaking about Microsoft as Xbox. I'm speaking about Microsoft as Microsoft. If hopefully you guys remember this, I said Microsoft has other branches, right? Like other parts of their business. So when they make a decision for Xbox, Phil Spencer isn't making that decision, right? He's reporting to someone else on the board. Sony, Nintendo is strictly a gaming company, right? So everything they do has to be gaming centric, right? Sony, a big part of their business, I don't know how much, I want to say probably if I had to guess, 40% is PlayStation.
It's actually more than that, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have no idea. But they have to be strategic. They have to do certain things. Xbox does not make majority decisions for Microsoft as a company. But
okay,
the company does make decisions.
Microsoft still has localization on Office, right? They still have localization on Word. Like that's in Korean, that's in Japan. Like all those services are available in those countries in the languages that those countries speak. This is not something.
Let me
new
ask
for
you a
Microsoft.
question. Do you
This
know
is
what
not something
Microsoft's most
specific for
profitable
gaming.
service is? Do you know what Microsoft's? I do. Do you?
What?
Do you know what Microsoft's most profitable service is? Because that's what I'm saying. You're talking. Oh, godly. Okay, never. You know what? I'm gonna keep.
Wait. I don't understand how me not knowing what the most profitable thing for Microsoft is.
Because you're speaking.
No. Listen to this. How does that equate to Microsoft not prioritizing localization, which is not a specific gaming thing? This is something that Microsoft does throughout all of its entire departments when it comes to localizing things for the countries where they are selling the product. This is not something specific for gaming. So tell me, why is it not important for Microsoft to properly localize their games when they localize literally everything else?
I don't have the bandwidth to answer that question right now.
How? Because it's a simple question. You're saying that it's so important that I understand the minutia of Microsoft's finances, but you're not able to tell me why it's not important for them to be able to properly localize something so that way the people who want to be able to enjoy their services can do it, especially when Microsoft does it for literally everything else inside of their business. Why is it that gaming has to be this very specific Americanized thing that they don't localize for everyone else? Why?
That's a good point.
I'm saying, because again, I don't got the bandwidth to answer it. This is what I'm going to say, right? You have to allocate your resources where you get the biggest bang for your buck. That's what I'm saying. That is the short version of it. You don't want to put resources. You don't want to give 140% to try to take over a market. And even say if you do win, you get a 30% return, right? But if you could put 50% allocation of resource into something and get a 90% return, that's worth it.
But you just told me that it's only going to cost a few $1 million to be able to port games to PlayStation, and because of that, they should do it. But you're telling me that a few $100,000 to get a proper localization team to be able to localize a game, that's not worth it, so that way people outside of the English-speaking world can play the game? How is it that the math isn't mathing?
So what I'm saying is, if you spend the money to localize the game and people still don't buy it, was it worth it?
My question is how much do you think a localization costs in compare? Because once again, you said that porting an entire game, code, trying to switch it from DirectX to Vulkan is going to be an easy process. No. You said that that process should be viable because financially they would make more money.
I never said DirectX to Vulkan. I never said that.
But that's how you port the game to PlayStation.
That is Xbox to PlayStation. That is the APIs that they use.
So you're telling me, so I didn't know that. So you're telling me PlayStation uses Vulkan and Xbox uses DirectX.
But at the end of the day,
so hold on, wait. I just want to know something. So there's no game on PS5 that uses DirectX. They're all Vulkan.
Yes, that's the API that they use.
Yes, the API they use.
So, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What does matter is the fact that it will cost money to be able to port these games over. And you said that it's okay for it to cost this much money because they will make X, Y, and Z money in the future from selling the game. I have no problem with that. But if you use that as logic, why is it so difficult to use the same logic for localization, which actually costs far less money than changing API codes and like doing everything else and making it proper for PlayStation? It'll cost you less money to localize the game, and you're able to hit way more than just the 100 plus million people who have a PS5 and a PS4. You're able to hit the billions of people who have who can speak different languages. If we're talking about impacting people, why is it that we suddenly have to have this like hyper American like mentality when it comes to properly bringing services over, but when it comes to consoles, suddenly like it becomes a different thing? It just it's not equating inside of my mind.
Let me answer your question. I just thought of a way to do it where I'm going to explain it for a long time, right? So the reason you spend the money to localize a game, right? Because you know the base is there. I'm gonna keep this very simple, very simplistic. If you know there's a first-person shooter, and first-person shooters sell very well in the US, right? You will spend money to convert a first-person shooter exclusive over to a different console because you know the base is already there, right? Why would you spend money to convert it, to another system overseas, right? And spend money to localize it, like you said, proper translation, all that good stuff, if you don't know if the market is there for it, right? The term JRPG is a real thing. JRPGs sell. There's so many versions in so many different games as JRPGs that never come to the States. You ask the same question, why don't they put it here? Because most people won't buy them. If Final Fantasy comes here consistently, Phantasy Star, Fire Emblem, these were all games that eventually came over to the US. But I guarantee you, if you look at how many games didn't get converted, it's hundreds, if not thousands of games. Because the market needs to be there. You don't spend money on an if, especially billions of dollars. You spend money on market analysis, penetration, and outcome.
But it's not going to cost billions of dollars to localize.
No.
Games.
I'm talking about in general. I'm just talking about in general, right?
Well, in general, 1.4 billion out of 2.7 billion gamers are in the Asia Pacific region. That's the most in the world.
That's the worst.
Okay,
in the world, yeah.
But again,
that's the majority of where gamers are. So you should be prioritizing making sure that they understand your games.
And when you're talking about market utilization, you're talking like SloMo specifically gave you an example. Age of Empires, those sort of like real-time strategy games are extremely popular in South Korea. And literally, it was an alley-oop. Microsoft just needed to make sure that the localization was proper so that way people could know what they were doing as they were playing the game. And the localization is so bad that it is practically unplayable for people who speak that language. And that like literally, this is a slam dunk. It is a market that loves that type of game. It is one of the best of those types of games, and everyone acknowledges for that type of genre, that thing is top tier. So imagine bringing essentially a Forza Horizon 5 like level of game to a bunch of people who love racing games, but the localization is completely borked, and because of that nobody plays it. Like that's what Mike, that's the example that he gave you.
Let me ask you this question. Okay. Let me ask you this question. You have a $500,000 salary, right? Would you bet your job that if you localize that game that you can do it where it'll be profitable? Would you be willing to put your job on the line to support your family, your kids, great grandkids? Would you do that?
Yes, and especially if it was for that specific game that I knew that genre does very well in that area. But you know what I'm not gonna do? I'm not gonna set up a bad localization team and then be like, all right, that's good enough. No, if you're gonna set this up, if you're gonna bank on this thing working, then you got to do it right. If you don't do it right, you don't get to complain and be like, well, it just didn't work out. No, man, you didn't do it right. You didn't. If people in that area who want that game, the market research tells you that they want that game, they are playing a lot of other games like that game, and you come out and release that game, but it's borked, you don't get to blame anyone but yourself.
I will.
So
Wait, I will.
I'm gonna ask one question.
Wait, I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you because I want to say this one thing. The one thing I will say is I definitely agree. The one thing I agree is definitely with their points is if you're going, like you even said it about the localization and everything, and about if you don't think if the basis is there, why release it, or the market's not there, why do it? I'm gonna say the same thing like what they're saying, and even go even simpler around not even the localization side of it. If you're not willing to put everything into releasing a game in a particular market, why release it at all?
Agreed.
That's like the simplest, like, because like they said, we've been talking about, especially with Age of Empire, like we know that those games do well over there, and I think their points are valid in that thing. And even if you want to just take it away from localization, if you're going to release a game in a particular region that deserves to be had localization in, and you're not willing to give it proper light when it comes to the people making it, then why would you release it at all? At that point, you're making your overall platform look bad. You're making everything about your services and everything look bad. Your games look bad, because that is a thing that they are probably looking forward to. And then when they see it, they're like, well, dude, do you even care about the way that people perceive your games? Because you basically released a lemon over here, because we can't even participate in it because we don't know what's going on.
So let me ask this question, right?
Yeah.
According to the consensus, right, it makes no logical sense for Microsoft not to set up a conversion team to get certain games and get the product so the brand is good in these countries. Y'all saying it makes no sense for this not to happen, right?
Right. No sense. It should happen.
Is SloMo, is that the consensus right now? That's what it is?
It should happen, yes.
Okay. So I'm asking the reason. So why is a company with literally, like, and I mean these exact words, an infinite pool of resources, is infinite, why have they not done it?
Rich companies can do dumb things. They do it all the time. Just because you're intelligent doesn't mean that you can't do dumb things. Just because you have a lot of analysts doesn't mean that they can't be wrong.
But boil it down.
And it also doesn't mean that you won't put your resources into the wrong place. We see big companies do this all the time. Just because they're rich doesn't mean they're smart. Like, they do dumb stuff all the time.
So you think the entire team over to Microsoft, let's be low and say 80 people, they're all dumbasses?
No, I'm saying whoever made the decision to not properly localize
it's not one person. It's not one person. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying whoever made, yes, because it's not the board who's saying, oh, we shouldn't localize these games. It is at some point inside of the chain, someone is not prioritizing those things as they should and not getting it to the powers that be, and then the powers that be can't push it the way that they can. The corporate ladder works in very weird ways. You need to advocate for things, and if you don't advocate for them, they will fall down the wayside. That's just how corporate works. That's what's happening. Nobody's properly advocating for this on the inside. They don't see the impact on it as they should because they're not paying attention to it. But the moment that they start paying attention to it, they'll see that impact, and they'll see localization as a real issue that they need to fix. The problem is they're not paying attention to that right now.
Right. And before we go on with the rest of it, SloMo, you got a graph on the screen. I definitely want you to go into depth on what you're showing everybody.
It's just a further breakdown of what the global market looks like per region, where gaming is and where the money is. And when they talk about wanting to reach 3 billion gamers, well, this is the 3 billion gamers. This is where those people are. This is just data that's 2 years old. The numbers are going to be different couldn't find 2023. I don't know why. I actually saw it like maybe 2 days ago. And for some reason, I just can't find it right now. But off the, a quick Google search, found 2022. This is the share of how revenue is split in each region in the billions for the entire world. They cannot afford, if they really expect, I'm hoping, this is my hope, I'll say this first thing, they cannot expect to not be better at this and expect to be better in gaming and overall. This is like walking. This is like a football team's deciding catching the ball ain't that important. This is like, a basketball team saying we don't need to play defense to win a championship. You need to do all those things. And I think that they need to understand that, and the idea that, well, we don't need to do those things, we can do other things. That's just not, like, even when you put your games on other platforms, if you're not doing those things properly, it's going to affect the way your brand looks overall. And when it comes to reaching those gamers and the 3 billion gamers, they gotta be better at this kind of stuff, because look at where 46% of the gamers are. They're in countries where the predominant language isn't your language. So you gotta be better at that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and we moved past it kind of quick there. But what I was saying is, the general consensus still is Microsoft is just stupid. That's why they're not doing it. But here's what I'm saying, right? And I'm not going to say anything else until I do a little role play at the end, because I promised somebody I would do that. I promise you guys it's going to be freaking epic. When it comes to getting things done in an industry, right, that we all, including myself, right, have literally not even surface level experience with, right? We're not sitting on these meetings. We don't do game design, the cost of this, right? We know the information that's online, right? The question was, why aren't they doing it? They have smart people there. Like literally you don't get to where you are. Xbox doesn't break into a brand new industry if they don't know what they're doing. Sony doesn't become one of the top brands beating Nintendo if they don't know what they're doing, right? You look back on the PS3 days, they'll probably say, oh my God, they're morons, right? Everything changes in time, right? But what I'm going to say is, and literally I don't know why I thought this before the podcast. I was thinking like billionaires and millionaires considered to be evil or stupid, right? It's a negative association with having like a lot of money and how companies move. But what I'm going to say is this: you can't get to the next level until you start thinking outside the box. And no disrespect to anybody in here, a lot of things that are being said is very surface level thinking, what we know within our groups, right? I can't even imagine what it's like to freaking try to manage $1 trillion companies. I don't know. But what I do know is you get the best bang for your buck with the least amount of effort. You ask any salesperson this, the number one thing you want to do is get the most money with the least amount of work, period. And what I'm going to say is this: what do you guys measure success as? Would you rather be very popular and broke, or no one likes you and successful, right? That's an internal question for each of you. But what I'm going to say is this: I don't know the scope of what you guys do. My brother can co-sign for this. I was over a total of 50 stores. I had a total of about 400 employees. And when I started learning how to manage something that big and how much one basis point can affect my market by the millions of dollars, I was shocked. When my VP pulled me in the room and said, Keith, if you sold 4 more cases on these skins, your market would have did an extra $3.9 million last month. I would have bet every dime I had that wasn't true, until she showed me the data. So until we all see the data these companies work with, we speak with very much passion, including myself. I only know the scope of what I deal with. But what I'm saying is, you say to convert these games over to other regions, it's a no-brainer. If it's such a no-brainer, why hasn't it happened? And the answer isn't because they're stupid. That's all I got.
Got it. Well, I definitely want to move on to the last thing, because like we pretty much, it's going to be a lot of agreeing to disagreeing. I do want to get everybody one more go around, just see if they got one more thing that they want to finish out on this, because we do want to talk about the one last thing we got, which everything, not a long thing, but PlayStation did have some stuff that came out over the course of the last 48 hours that we definitely want to talk about. But SloMo, do you have anything else that you want to bring up when it comes to this subject?
Nope.
Lucius?
I think PlayStation has great localization, and it helps them sell their games all over the world.
I agree. SloMo, is on you.
Last topic with PlayStation.
Yep.
So PlayStation financial report came out yesterday, and they had to just quick bullet points. They had to lower their forecast from 25 million PlayStation 5 sold to 21 million. That number was a bit too high for them, and 21 million seems to be a bit more manageable. And they also felt that more than likely in the next year, the next fiscal year, they will be selling less PlayStation 5s as well, with not having any major existing IPs to be releasing in the next fiscal year. That doesn't mean they aren't releasing any first party games. They are releasing Concord. They are releasing fair games between now and next March. But nothing like a God of War or Uncharted, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima, like the stuff that people know their first part, the tentpole stuff. That said, the Sony COO, who is now the interim CEO over Sony Interactive Entertainment, spoke out specifically about the games and their focus and aggression in multi-platform. And specifically, the way he was speaking about was that they would be being more aggressive in how they did that. And when he spoke about that, the PlayStation 5 is their primary driver and their primary method of delivering their games to other gamers, but they eventually do put those games, the single player ones, on PC, and that they do day and date launch games for live service games like Helldivers 2, which just released and is seeing a good measure of success, that they will be more aggressive in that. And that has been a little bit of a debate, a little bit of contention among people who believe this is a signal that they will be launching their single player games on PC soon. And some people who believe it's just shortening the delay to PC and not necessarily day and date. Regardless, if you're a PC gamer, it's gotta be good news for you, because the games that, if there are any of those games or games that you want to play, you may decide that, hey, I don't want to get a PlayStation and buy those games on PlayStation when it's going to potentially come to my PC in 6 months instead of a year or two. So
just to give a little, so just to do a little bit of context around everything. Revenue for PlayStation, 10.2 billion, up 60% year over year. Operating profit was $0.6 billion, so just under, just over half of 2 billion, over half of 1 billion, or under 1 billion, which was negative 26% year over year. They shipped 8.2 million consoles to date for a total of 54,800,000 for life to date. PlayStation 5 has officially started trailing, because up until this point, PlayStation 5 was leading in pace over PS4 sales year over year. It is now trailing by 2.3 million since launch, when it aligned with PS4 at the same date. They did, like someone did say, 25 million was the year forecast, which was going to be at the end of March, but they downgraded that to 21 million over the course of this year. Operating income costs suffered due to the high cost, and that was one of the biggest things that the CEO talked about. We need to find a way to either spend less money or we need to make more money, hint why more games in consideration for PC. Spider-Man 2 sales top 10 million units as of February 4th. Great to hear from Spider-Man 2. This was a really cool one. The MAUs, which if anybody doesn't know, that's considered monthly active users, that reached 123 million, which is up 16 million quarter over quarter and plus 111 million year over year. They say their biggest financial fall for Q3 was trailing 12-month revenue, which was a negative $28.1 billion. And then overall, they sold $89 million worth, or 89 million copies of games, which is up 3% year over year. But they're also down 22% to 16.2 million over the quarter, over the first party games. I'm sorry. And then down 33% total revenue, which is a breakdown of hardware being 6% of that. So those are like kind of the raw numbers that they kind of thrown out there, that everything that was happening. The biggest thing is, I want to turn over to everybody else. Remember when they said the whole slate? That ain't changed. The whole slate was still going to come. The question always was, how soon is the whole slate going to come? Like, first we had a game that was a couple years, when it came to Horizon. It was like 2 or 3 years after launch, three years, it might've been 3 years after launch, 4 years probably, I don't know. But that was the first. Then you started getting games like God of War, which was another 3 years after launch. And then it's just been getting smaller and smaller. Then you start getting Spider-Man, Miles Morales, that was 2 years after launch. And then you have other games like Horizons get ready to come out. That's just 2 years after launch. And now you finally have your first day and date game, which is a games as a service. So we already knew that those games were more likely going to be, day and date. But it just seems like they're moving closer and closer to that avenue. I want to go to you, Lucius. What do you think of just all of the information that came out and what the intern CEO had to say about the direction of PlayStation and how they're operating with it?
I noticed 3 things. One, they didn't talk about their subscription numbers, which means that their subscriptions are going down.
Mm-hmm.
The guy spoke about multi-platform, which I think we all just know that means PC. I don't think we're under any delusion that's going to mean that the games are coming to Xbox ever. But that means that they're kind of looking at the PC ecosystem to maybe get closer to that time frame as day and date. But their studios are just not equipped for that. One is the small hurdle that you'll have converting, all your API calls from Vulkan to DirectX. Like, a lot of that stuff's getting easier, but when a team isn't used to, developing for PC, and they have to do a lot of that like conversion stuff, that can lead to The Last of Us Part 1 and how that came out on PC, and it was just terrible performance-wise, and it took 6+ months for that game to come out in a good state. I don't think PlayStation wants to continue that kind of mentality. I think they want to release their games in a kind of good fashion in PC, and Nixxes is just not big enough as an organization to be able to take on more than one project at a time, by the looks of it. So whether or not they want to kind of move in that direction, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to be able to execute it, especially in the way that we see that Xbox is doing it, because they've made it so that way as Microsoft has purchased studios, and as it's built up its studios, its entire mentality is, hey, we're going to be releasing these day one on PC. So every single one of their studios is equipped to do that, in comparison to PlayStation studios, they are very much not equipped to do that at all. We saw the situation with Naughty Dog. Now you can blame some of that on the other porting studio that they're asking for help, but Naughty Dog came out with their chest out, acting like they are the ones who did it before they saw everyone's reaction, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
I whether or not the COO, now interim CEO, he's the money guy, um, and he kind of oversees a lot of kind of the big picture stuff, but I just don't think that their studios have the facilities for it. I don't think it's going to work. It's going to take a few more years before the vision of day and date PlayStation games to PC. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
And why I still have you on that topic, because I'm going to because we're late and I just want to get everybody's opinions on it before we close out the show. Why we still have you? What do you think about the conversation around first party and the lack of first party tentpole games coming in 2024 into 2025?
I think that is a problem for primarily the console warrior and list war kind of person. But if we're being very honest, Sony has done a very good job with associating themselves with like particular brands and like making third party deals. It's part of, I can understand why Phil Spencer doesn't like doing it, because from an economic standpoint, like you're paying all this money for something that's relatively unknown and you're trying to associate it with your brand, and like on the offset, you sometimes don't even make as much money as you would want. So I understand why Phil Spencer doesn't like doing it, but the tool that is third party exclusives is that it gives you breathing room in times like these, right? And I think that having something like Final Fantasy 16 last year filled up the year so that way people didn't feel as bad at the fact that they were only getting Spider-Man. And this year they're able to deliver Helldivers 2, which is only on PlayStation and PC, so people are going to remember that. And when Rebirth comes out in a few weeks, they're going to remember that too. They're going to feel the positive association to having that game on that platform, and you're not going to be able to play it anywhere else. You can't play it on PC. You can only play it on PlayStation. So if you want to play that game, you either have to wait or play it on that platform. So I think that the third party exclusives have really benefited Sony in the past, and I think that this year is going to really help them out. Now next year, 2025, that's going to be an insane year. If what I'm hearing is true on the Xbox side, that's going to be a great year for Xbox. And GTA 6 is coming out 2025. That's also when Wolverine is supposed to come out as well. So I think that if Insomniac continues to be Insomniac and continues to be just rock solid at delivering things at like a very good pace, they'll have a Wolverine probably in the later half of 2025, and GTA 6 on a PS5 Pro, and you have Wolverine. I think that that's going to be more than enough for them in that calendar year, at least when it comes to the way that like gamers will see it.
Cool. Appreciate it. K-Live, want to get your opinions on that stuff, and then after that I want our homie SloMo to finish us out. But what do you think in general, K-Live, about the lack of first party exclusive, not lack of first party exclusive, but lack of tentpole titles from PlayStation coming out for the rest of this year and going into next year, and the situation around their around the business of PlayStation when it comes to like revenue generated and things like that?
So I'll sum up in one thing. Sony knows what they're doing when it comes to releases first party or third party just games in general, right? Like look at they're winning this round of the console wars. It's not even close, right? So to keep it short and like you said, let SloMo kind of wrap it up. I would like to do, with your guys' approval, this short little kind of role play with somebody who's active in the chat. It's gonna take about 45 seconds. You guys cool with that real quick?
Go.
All right.
Who's in the
So
chat?
yeah, who do you guys think was most active? Just stroll through and just pick a name. This Dorian Gray, I think Dorian Gray. He was kind of active in Van Doom, but that's who I saw giving the most chats. But
Pick
I'll
one.
kinda-
Doesn't
No,
matter.
SloMo, you pick one.
Go ahead and do Dorian Gray.
Dorian Gray. All right. So since I've been pro Xbox, I'm gonna make this about Halo. So Dorian, I hope you're listening, bro. This is for you. So here's the situation. This is what the role play is gonna be about. Okay. So as you know, SloMo works for the government, feds, FBI. He's gonna lock everybody up, right? So he's a Spartan. We're on Reach, and Dorian Gray, you just got a brand new suit of armor that SloMo has no idea that you have. And Forte is fitting your armor to you right now. You guys are game planning because you know SloMo is coming to get his armor. Here we go.
Oh God, here we go.
Forte looks at Van Doom and Forte looks at Dorian Gray and says, listen, Dorian, this armor is untested. We don't know what it's capable of. It has mods I've never seen before. SloMo experiments with super high explosive, fast hitting explosives for every suit he builds. If we trigger this incorrectly, we can all die. Van Gray looks deeply, slowly, into Forte's grill and says, I know what I'm doing. Quickly, you turn to the left. You see them all. Everyone. Who is everyone? Forte says. He looks at him and says, it's SloMo's entire platoon. They're here. Forte hits the lights. Like a sunshine coming through a dark cloud. Forte knew immediately. It was SloMo's Fortune 5 armor that he's been developing for a century. SloMo kicks in the door, looks around, and says, I want it all. Not just my suit. I want your lives, your technology, and all of Reach. Forte looks slowly into SloMo's eyes and says, you can't have anything. You have one shot in that bazooka. What do you plan to do? SloMo pans to the left, looks over his right shoulder, and whispers to his entire team, all I need is one. To be continued on the next podcast.
Oh my God, F you, bro. Moving on.
You definitely have a future in audiobooks.
I need to get you.
No,
I need
dead
to get
serious.
him with. I need to listen. He does. I need to get you with Ramon Terrell. You know, shout out to
Ramon. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Ramon does fantasy books, and he's published like 3 or 4. Ramon's probably going to kill me for not knowing how many. He's got another one coming out, but no, like I mean, dead serious. That's good.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, go ahead. To be continued on the next podcast. Shut up. All right, so finish. So that's what you all. That's all. Did you have anything else you wanted to say around the other stuff?
They're winning, man. Like they know what they're doing. Again, you can't argue with the track record, right? I'm pretty sure, I don't gotta look at the numbers. Their AAA games, well, they have more consoles. Their AAA games, probably 2X or 3X Xbox's AAA games, right? They're the spot to be for third party right now. So I don't think they can make the wrong move at all. I just think they're choosing the best right moves. So nothing to add other than Sony just keep doing what you're doing.
Cool. SloMo, take us home, bro.
In the month of February, they have released they not just them, but they had the pleasure of being the only platform in the console market to have Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which is a very good action RPG with co-op. They have Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out, which is likely going to be in the Game of the Year conversation. And Helldivers 2, which is their own published game, second party, but it's showing a right. It's showing a measure of success. I think that this is kind of, remember, what year was it? 2022? Yeah, 2022, when all Xbox released was Pentiment. And a lot of people, even though they did have some was that official? I mean, well, that was kind of early access before then.
Yeah,
but
it went into 1.0 that year. It launched.
Okay, I'll give them Grounded and give them Pentiment, both from Obsidian. Shout out to Obsidian, that's their Insomniac. But what people were kind of looking forward, were hoping that Xbox would have more of the kind of content third party that, while and this is going to happen occasionally, well, maybe not for Xbox in the future, considering they got like 40 studios now. Like, they're probably never going to have a dry spell again. The level of quality of those games might be up to, a subject to be questioned, but as far as quantity goes, they're probably going to be good for the here on out. But going back to Sony, they're really good at picking developers that they may not own, but kind of cultivating relationships with these developers, and not necessarily indies, because they used to be big with indies, but not so much anymore. But you look at Shift Up with Stellar Blade that's coming out this year. That's a game that, from a developer that used to do what I call mobile thirst traps, that didn't look like a game that most like console gamers would want to play, but then they wanted to kind of make this other game that would be more be marketed to bigger markets than simply just a mobile market. And that this game was initially supposed to be multi-platform, but then got switched from that to, once they got their eyes on it, to a full-on console exclusive. And I think that's something that they have a good eye for. You look at Ember Lab with Kane of Bridge of Spirits, which came out a few years ago. That game was that studio, right? And that studio was a animation studio, and all they did was animation before. Like, Kane of Bridge of Spirits is their very first game, and that's still something. They took a chance with them, and they saw something in the game. Very, very good game. I think that kind of eye and that kind of ability to kind of pinpoint when they can be able to fill their own first party content gaps is something that they are uniquely good at, that both Nintendo and Xbox have never really been able to nail. And I think that's going to bode well for them this year. They were right to lower their forecast and let their shareholders know that we're not going to sell like we did last year. When you're not going to have you're not likely not going to have the marketing for Call of Duty this year. That's going to be an impact. When you don't have your own tentpole big game to show, like Spider-Man 2, like that sold a lot of systems, that sold a lot of copies, 10 million copies sold. They're likely not going to have any game this year that's going to sell like Spider-Man 2 sold last year. And so Spider-Man 2 also sold as bundled in a lot of systems. And so you got to kind of measure expectations accurately for your shareholders, who need to be kind of called along, and they don't all understand how the gaming industry works, but you need to kind of help them understand where this is going to go for the next fiscal year. And then next year they're definitely going to have way more games. They're going to have their what we expand along, if you want to call it, with Venom. They're going to have Death Stranding 2. They're going to have more games coming in the next fiscal year, but they're going to manage that content this year by leveraging their partners, and it's worked well for them in the past. It's probably going to work well for them this year too.
I wish Xbox would learn how to do that.
But as a PC gamer,
PC stay winning.
Oh, we keep winning, man. We keep winning because I mean, Forte, if you remember, like in January, we were talking about this rumor that it was like 6 PlayStation games that hadn't been released on PC yet that were coming to PC, and including Until Dawn. And Until Dawn was certified as a definite one like a few days later.
Yep.
And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at I forgot. I don't want to say the guy's name inaccurately, so I'm just going to say their interim CEO. Him talking about them being more aggressive. That could be.
Sataki.
Thank you. That can be like translated in very different ways. That can be. They could be more aggressive in getting more of their back catalog on PC as well. And I thought about that yesterday, about those 6 games, and I think they were Demon Souls, Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, Horizon Forbidden West, and there was one more I can't remember, but it makes a lot of sense that now, looking at what they said, those games will all release on PC this year. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So hey, be on PC gamers, we continue to keep getting everything, so
I've
enjoy
been
it.
waiting for Ghost of Tsushima on PC. That will just be so fun on the go.
You're
I
right.
also want to say that I think that the mobile, like the handheld PC market, has definitely kind of been the monkey wrench in this entire generation. And it's to say that, like, it's not to say that like any of them have sold like 20 plus million or something, but I think the Steam Deck itself has sold around 3 to 4 million. The ROG Ally is selling pretty well. The Legion Go is also selling pretty well. And then you also have a bunch of these other Chinese handhelds that have always kind of existed, the Ioneas, the GPDs of the world. They're starting to sell even better than they have in previous years. So I don't know if it's affecting the console market, but I think that this new kind of growing ecosystem of like handheld gaming is becoming a force, and I think that might be impacting people's perception of, do I even want a console when I can play this like handheld PC thing that allows me to be able to do so much.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Well, listen, PlayStation has, I always tell people that PlayStation and Xbox cannot be talked about the same. PlayStation, as much as we complain about not knowing the roadmap, not knowing what's going on with PlayStation, they always give themselves a out because they give you amazing games, and it's like kind of recent. Like, so right now, a lot of people are still living off of the fact that Spider-Man, released last year. People are still talking about that. A lot of people are still talking about Grand Blue. A lot of people are going to be talking about Final Fantasy, just like you said, Lucius. That brand recognizability when it comes to that type of game, knowing that it's a third-party game, but it might as well be first-party for PlayStation. And you got people like SloMo and myself that aren't going to wait. Like, I have a very powerful PC that can play that game, and it's only looking like it's going to be a 3 to 4 month wait for it to come on PC. But guess what? That's why I have a PlayStation. That's why I'm going to play it over there. So even though they don't have any other big first-party titles outside of Helldivers this year, I think there's still going to be a lot of games that's going to basically be very significant with PlayStation. And then I think the only thing they really need to do is come out with a roadmap sometime this year, telling people what to look forward to in the future. Once they do that, I think then they'll be perfectly fine and everybody will be okay with the direction. It just seems like right now, it just sucks that we don't know what that future looks like. But the fact that they sold so many consoles, the fact that everything is looking really good for them, it's still a good thing. And like I said, even for Microsoft, it's heading in the right direction. We just want to know more. So with that, really appreciate everybody coming through. This has been dang 4.5 hour podcast. We're like the Iron Lords out here. So I first want to say thank you to the chat. Thank you to everybody that came through. Make sure you hit the like button on this channel. We're trying to build this one up to 500. Once we build it up to that point, we are going to switch over everything from our main channels and do DPS on its own channel, which is this one. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button over here. Really appreciate that. Share it out with all your friends. I do want to get everybody up out of here, and I want to start with the homie Lucius Augustus. Thank you for your first time coming through on DPS, man. Really appreciate your insight and all your knowledge. Please let everybody know where they can find you, what you got going on, and everything.
They can find me nowhere. Please don't look for me. You might find me in Discords. I'm in the House of Slap now, so that's great. I'm also in the Gaming Circle podcast, so if you're in that Discord, you'll see me there having conversations, talking that talk, all that. But outside of that, don't look for me. I really do appreciate you guys having me. The conversation was very, very interesting. I really appreciate the different minds that we have here. Even when we don't agree, I do like just the different perspectives. So I always enjoy that. Thank you so much for having me. Maybe I'll be able to do this next time. Hopefully it's not 4 hours though.
No, it won't be 4 hours. It definitely won't be that. And no, you're always welcome here, bro. Once you come one time, you can always go into the refrigerator. We may not stock it. You might have to do it yourself a couple of times, but you're always welcome. K-Live, my brother, literally my younger brother. Yeah, my little brother. You remind me of the first time that I had a conversation with SloMo, and it kind of went the same way. It was a lot of passion, a lot of back and forth, and I felt like I was reliving it literally in the middle of this podcast. So I appreciate you coming through, man, and I appreciate all of your insight and stuff that you brought to the podcast and the things you had to say. Everybody, like you said, everybody doesn't have to disagree, but as long as we get our points across and people understand where we're coming from, that's all that matters. Please let everybody know what you got going on, if you want to be found, and what's everything that's going on with you and in your life.
Oh, man, listen, I'm just stoked to be on the show, man.
That's how I was before.
But no, and I agree. Amazing ideas aren't born from agreeal or cohesiveness. It's born in conflict and disagreeal. But more importantly, when those disagreeals come to a common ground where both people understand and you formulate better actions moving forward to win together. So no, man, again, I appreciate the back and forth. I appreciate as he just said, the different viewpoints and opinions. So, you can find me, here, whenever they invite me over, I bug my brother enough to get me on. And that's about it, man. So no, I appreciate everybody.
I appreciate you. Next thing we're going to do is work on getting you either a better mic or a mic where you don't have to, it cancels out your fan in the background.
Oh shit. You should have, excuse me. Shoot.
It's fine.
Should have said something. I could have cut it off.
I just noticed it because we're actually all calm now, and I can hear everything that's going on, and people not yelling over each other.
Well, how is my images and lights up?
No, you're good, bro. I'm just messing around. And the man, the myth, the legend, the man of many slaps, SloMo, my homie, the man I cannot do this show without. He brings so much knowledge to it, and I really appreciate him. Please let everybody know what you got going on your channel in general, your channel members and everything. Please let everybody know where they can find you and stuff like that.
Is this really 4 hours?
Yes,
that's the first thing I
no, it's not 4 hours. 3.5.
Oh, okay, good. I was about to say that is
like
about to be the record. Like I don't think that we've done a show this long, but definitely shout out to K-Live and Lucius for joining us and sticking it out that long, whatever the length is. Pause, because it's 12:30 in the morning where I am right now. I don't know what time you guys are at, but it's pretty damn late. And shout out to the chat for the guys the 20 that are still here, because you guys definitely are Iron Men and women for doing that. For my channel, I will I'm still working on a video for the game Exodus by Archetype Entertainment. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's just they keep dropping new information. And when they drop new information, I'm like, well, if I release this video without that, someone's going to be in the comment section like, you missed blah 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 blah. So I keep adding to it, and it just keeps continuing. So look, it's going to come when they stop, like, at some point they're going to not have anything to say, and so when they do, then I will drop some more for that video. But there's Lunchtime with SloMo, and all that good stuff. And on the DPS channel, I am doing the Final Fantasy VII Remake live stream. I should be. I think I might have only 2 streams left before I have intermission, but I'm going to try to speed the cadence up with that. So I probably would do a stream tomorrow on this channel. So, you know, please, if you're interested, hit the like button and subscribe button on the channel, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, or today, because it's kind of tomorrow already, I guess. Yeah.
And for those who made it to the very end, no, not a kill. I'm just gonna keep saying not a kill. And SloMo wants to get this podcast to 500, right? So for those who got the very end, when this gets to 1,000 subscribers, not a kill, and I mean this, he will donate a PC to someone, custom PC that we built. You have no say in what you get. It's gonna be nice though. And 2 criterias: you have to fly out, which we will cover, airfare and hotel.
Wait, you said we? You must be talking about you.
Man, listen, man, we're together, bro. So we're gonna fly you out. You got to come to Michigan, hang out with us, do a podcast live. We'll record it and edit it, and you also have to do an epic role play. So whoever is on that, when we get to the 1,000 subscribers, hopefully I can get these guys to do a podcast, and we'll vote on who gets that free PC and a trip to Michigan to hang out with us. So, and again, criterias are 1,000 subscribers. You have to be on the 1,000 subscriber podcast, active in the chat, and if you do get selected, you have to agree to do an epic role play on the podcast. You get a brand new gaming PC and a trip to Michigan.
You know, the funny thing is, I believe my brother when he says this, but we are definitely going to put a hold on this until we get close to that.
1,000, yeah. But no, that's the point. If they have to see this podcast, they have to see this, remember this. Oh, and the password is SloMoBackSlap Live. You have to say that.
I know there's been multiple times during this show.
The password is
applicable.
Yep. You have to put in the chat SloMoBackSlap Live.
And what episode is this? So this has to be on the episode that we have at least 1,000 subscribers.
At least 1,000 subscribers. The first podcast after we pass 1,000.
Oh, okay.
Again, criteria: have to be in the chat, have to be selected, have to put password SloMoBackSlap Live, come to Michigan, hang out with us, and you have to agree to do an epic role play at the end of the podcast. You get the PC.
Oh Lord!
You know what's wild? It's going to be episode like 224, and we're going to completely forget this conversation, and then someone's going to be in the chat and then put that, and we're going to be like, "What?"
I'm instantly at that moment going to call K Live and say, "Hey, I need you in this show right now." I'm just letting you know, you're gonna get a call instantly right then and there. But if that's the case, I really appreciate it, bro. And we'll definitely appreciate it, and our fans will appreciate it too if that's the case. So let's get up out of here. Shout out to Corey Hale, your boy Roy, FTW, Donnell Brown, Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, Ramon Terrell, Hargy Shanice, SloMoBackSlap, DJ Oris, and that guy Smitty. Those are the people that are subscribed on the channel. Really appreciate all you guys and your love and your support. And we will see you guys next week. SloMo, if you have yours up, go ahead and get it out so we can get up out of here.
On my side, your boy Roy, Stardust Acero, FTW, Corey Hill, Donnell Brown, J0387, Enrique, Hargy Shani, Trevor Birdsong, Homie One Kenobi, Game of Forte, and that guy Smitty. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for supporting us. You guys are awesome. And once we get the DPS channel set up, but we can actually do channel memberships there, we would do everything we can to make sure that we can just transition you guys over there with I don't know, like we talked about, like some kind of legacy badge or something like that, so that, you know, you just signify that you guys have been channel members for that long, even though it will kind of reset. But we want to just recognize you guys and give you guys the props that you deserve. So yeah.
Let me ask you something quite slow-mo. Since there's a lot of people that's in here, and I know like Texas is a subscriber on one of our channels. He's not in the Discord for, a one-time only. Do you want to just drop the link to the Discord for anybody that supports on this channel right now today, just so they can get in?
Oh my gosh. Now you're gonna have to make me manage this thing. Okay, hold up. Let me
I mean, I can do it. I just want to know if that's something you want to do. Because Texas just asked about it. He is a subscriber member on one of the channels, so he should already have access to it.
Yeah, he already has. Texas is on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
All right, Texas, I got you. Because like in his the way it works for his member perks, he should be able to see that. Like you click on the perks, and then at the level that he's at, it should show a link, a never-ending link to the Discord. If that doesn't,
you're right.
If that doesn't work, Texas, just let me know.
Yeah.
And I'll get you a link so that because everyone that has like Rodimus is in there and a bunch of people who are in there, but like if you have the membership, you have that access at any time, and it should I set it as an infinite time thing, but sometimes Discord messes up or links just expire anyway. So if you have a problem with it, just let me know on Twitter and I'll hook you up.
All right, guys, have a good night. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the other podcast. It's gonna talk about how Xbox ruined them. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.